So we just had another Inside Star Citizen, as we do pretty much every single Thursday. And as we approach 3.18, we're seeing more and more of the features that are going to come in and hopefully clear us of some of this boredom. Before we get started, I stream over at twitch.tv/Croncy, so if you're ever in the neighborhood, come on over, hang out, and maybe play in a tank battle or two. Now, before I get into the majority of the stuff that they talked about in this ISC, I wanted to get into a small little section of things that they talked about. 3.18 is fast approaching, and it has been an extremely long time since we've heard really much anything about Cargo Refactor. But luckily, we did hear Jared talk about PES and Cargo Refactor both having episodes in upcoming ISCs.
To the Cargo Refactor, hull scraping, and persistent entity streaming, and more that we'll be covering over our next 5 weeks.
Now, that doesn't 100% mean they haven't been pushed or anything, but I think that's a really good sign. Now, let's get into what they were talking about today. Caves have existed in SC for quite a while now, but we haven't had an update from them since, I believe, early last year. This is when they introduced both the fly-inable and the drive-inable caves. But unfortunately, those archetypes have looked exactly the same since caves first began, meaning that there's not really any uniqueness between any cave system. Well, in 3.18, we get our first variant, Desert Caves. We saw a couple of images and a bunch of video about what these look like. And one thing that absolutely stands out is look at all of this natural light. This looks absolutely stunning. And anytime there's a new environment to explore, I get really excited. So now we can finally live out our Tusken Raider dreams. Apparently these desert caves are going to be brought to a couple of different locations: Daymar, Hurston, Magda, Eta, and even Wala, which I suspect might actually be one of the coolest looking places, especially if they have all the little green gems and stuff inside the caves. Unfortunately, there won't be any missions associated with those when they initially release, but that kind of makes me excited to go explore and try to find these caves. And you can bet I will try to find a reason to go down in there, whether it's gun running, making a race, I don't know, but I'm going to be in there in 3.18. Apparently a lot of the work that they've been doing is figuring out how to make extra archetypes. And they do mention that this will not stop at sand caves. Firstly, apparently they're going to replace the old caves with a new archetype, which is honestly pretty cool. They are very outdated as is. In addition, some of the cooler ones that we wanted, acidic caves, ice caves, hell, even overgrown caves, which I assume will have like a bunch of tree roots and stuff going through them, they're all somewhere on the pipeline. So hopefully by making the workflow better, we can see a lot of these a lot sooner. They also mentioned that they made the traversal of the caves much easier. So caves, awesome to see. Can't wait until they get in. I'd like to see more of these concepts that they might have for these other types of caves, but I'm pretty happy so far. Next up is a pretty big one, which is the new player experience. We haven't really had any new player experience in the game for years. A common complaint that I get all the time when new players come into Star Citizen is, how do I get to my hangar? How do I get armor? How do I get weapons? Lots of really basic information that the game just doesn't really tell you, or if it does, it tells you in the tooltips that are really, really inconsistent. So as we know, for the last couple of months, they've actually been working on that. And today we got to hear about what that might entail. So a lot of it kind of seems like hand-holding the player through the first 30 minutes of gameplay, basically getting the players everything they need to get into a hangar, get into a ship, and do their first few missions. This also sounds like it involves a couple of light missions, both FPS and flight, and sounds like a pretty decent way to run it at the moment in Star Citizen. Now, we do need more. We need a proper tutorial for this game. It is incredibly in-depth as is. And luckily, they did mention that once they do start moving towards beta, they're going to make a much more in-depth tutorial. The one that they're working on now also uses some Squadron 42 HUD elements, so they're waiting a little bit for that. And we should see the first tests of this over at Area 18 before moving them to other landing zones. New player experience right now is absolutely awful. The second I found out they were working on it, I was really happy. And this seems like a good way to go about it until they can make a much larger and much more in-depth tutorial. There are still going to be new players that are going to need help, but this will make it so they need significantly less help. And as we all know, how many times do you pop into a game and the first 30 minutes tell you whether you want to play that game or not? Well, imagine you're now exploding on hangars constantly because you don't know how to turn your ship on. All in all, some pretty cool stuff. I'm getting really, really excited for 3.18. And now that Jared has talked about how some of the other features like salvage and whatnot are going to be talked about in future ISCs, I am really excited for the next 5 weeks. What did you think? What was your favorite thing inside the ISC today? And comment below a cave type that you would like to see that they didn't mention. If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell to know the next time that I release a Star Citizen video. We just started a little like podcasty type series called Comlink. That's going to be running every single Monday, but I'm going to post it on YouTube as well, so have a look out for that. It's a combination of having a proper conversation about the game, as well as getting you guys to comment and have little discussions in the chat about Star Citizen. That's it from me. Have a fantastic day, guys.
I'm dumb.